It's like every time my friends come to visit me from Brooklyn, I find that my Brooklyn accent for the like 3 weeks after has gotten so much, and I'm like, please God, I have to go in recovery.
I never noticed that it left.
Yes, but no, there's a lot deeper accents than mine.
And that's true.
But it's true when you write something about personal about yourself, it gets dark.
And even like going like sometimes like because I'm not that guy, right? So even like if I go out shows and people always want to hear horror stories from me, tell me the time you stabbed this guy, tell me the time you tortured this guy, whatever it is, and that whole thing gets built up. Well, after a show, you feel real uncomfortable, like I want to get away from it. But this was 4 months of 24 hours a day, 4 months reliving that crap without being able to get away from it.
Wow! So you wrote this whole book in 4 months?
It was 4 months.
That's impressive.
Was it after you got done with it? Was it dark?
It was actually, it felt good like right afterwards, but I'll tell you, I had nothing. I had a deadline and I'd already spent the money. It's like,
that's not addict behavior at all.
And this book is not what they asked for. That's the other thing. See, they wanted straight nonfiction. Just tell me about TSOL, tell me about Vicious Circle, tell me about being a punk on the West Coast in the 80s.
Right.
And so I looked at it, I thought, this is so boring. And I was reading those things, like, how many times are you going to hear this stuff? So I had a whole other book written and threw it in the trash. Just got rid of it. I said, this is boring, I'm throwing it in the trash. I was out walking one morning, had the idea for this one instead to do it completely different than in the other memoir.
Right.
And I got
It's interesting because it's first person, but it feels third person.
Right, because
you know what I mean? It's reflective first person, so it's really, you get the sense that you're there in the moment, but in the first person. But it's history. It's very interesting. It's a unique style. I really, and as a compliment, I haven't read anything like this before. It's
thanks.
Really unique book.
And I appreciate, and that's what they're saying too, because it was really like to write like that was to show the separation. Like to show the complete selfishness, to write in that style was to just show that there was no one but this character in his mind at all. Like complete separation. So, it was...
Tell us about the arc of the book, without ruining it. When it's linear in that it goes, from when you were a young child, and then it sort of ends...
Well, it's like coming in, being basically coming here as a demon. That was the whole deal. Like coming here as a demon, sociopath, nothing. Right. And then going through some child abuse issues or whatever was happening, and if you really look at it, what a lot of kids who are in abuse situations, they all go, I'm bad, I'm being abused because I'm bad. So even if you look at it like that, it's like an abused kid saying, I'm a demon, I deserve to be beaten, and then the whole separation, so basically, the opposite of this book is most guys drink and then they go downhill. This character drinks and becomes human because of the alcohol. So he actually develops feelings for people. Alcohol being synthetic God. Right. Basically, that's what it is. Spirit, a spirit, basically. He gets his first connection of feeling close to someone, feeling connected. And it turns him from sociopathic behavior to actually caring for someone and then unable to deal with his feelings of caring. And it goes through the book, and the selfishness just gets worse. And there's God characters involved in a Satan character, and the God character uses my daughter against me.
Right.
Because he gives me someone that I can't help but care for, and it destroys me.
It's just fascinating, and it was really unique because, like you said, a lot of books just look for like that train wreck and then the redemption. And whatever, and that's not in this book.
Well,
I'm dying to ask.
Yeah.
So how did you change? Can you tell us?
Well, it was slow. I don't change in this. I go down. Oh, thank you very much. It's like I go down swinging in this book. Right. It's like, hey, I'm clean now. I'm whatever happens at the end. It's like, hey, I'll be clean, but I will not bow down to you.
Right.
So it's real anti. It's real anti in the.
But how did you change from the psychopath or the sociopath to the person you are today?
Today?
Yeah.
A lot of work, man.
That's in the next book.
Well, that's
I'm a psychiatrist. I have to ask.
Yeah. Well, waking up. You see it all the time. It's like, and it's not necessarily just talking about steps or whatever. A lot of people can do the steps and still not wake up.
Oh, I know.
I think most
people
do the steps and never wake up.
Right, because a lot of them are forced to, or they're doing it to please somebody, or somebody told them that this is what they're supposed to do, right? But basically what happened slowly is once I got sober and started to get aware, I started having little flashes of waking up. And then with waking up comes remorse. There's one thing to do amends work to people because you're told to and you're following it, but there's another way to go through and do amends work to people because you really mean it now.
Right.
It was like my mom. I tell you, I first made amends.
You say waking up. Waking up to what?
Waking up to what you are. I mean, that's the trouble, in my opinion.
Being honest with yourself?
Right. If you look at someone who's completely involved in selfishness and self-centeredness, we've got one perception, and it's from inside out, one direction of perception. We're looking what these guys are, what these guys are, what these guys are. Yeah. I think the very first spiritual awakening or whatever you have is when you step outside yourself and look back and see yourself as others see you, not how you see you.
Well, I always tell that story when I was walking.
That's eloquent. Yeah.
When I was walking in Arizona, I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan. I hope that doesn't offend. But he has that line in his song where he says, "Watch my empty silhouette." And I remember, but closed my eyes, but still could see. And I remember when I was at this point where I was walking around with these 2 heavy bags of laundry. I didn't care anymore what machine they went into, just stuffing this whole thing in. And I remember I could look for myself from the outside. I just remember seeing something, for the first time in my life, really seeing somebody that I couldn't believe what I had become. And I think a lot of us, we get this glimpse. And we call it a burning bush, you call it whatever you want. We get this glimpse of what we've become. And we become uncomfortable with it for the first.
And thankfully, we don't get that glimpse all right away. I always make jokes with people. I'm talking to them. It's like, hey, I woke up, and thank God, just a little bit.
Right.
If it was a lot,
I'll say the capacity for self-observation.
Right.
Yeah, and to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see how they're seeing you and how they're responding to you.
Wait, when does that normally develop in people? It's a developmental
third
stage,
grade,
right?
It should right. And normally for people, it should be like elementary school.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very early.
Yeah.
I mean, object relations theory would say the earliest relationship with the mother and the mother mirroring it back, how the reaction they're getting from the child, and so I would think something went wrong very early, and it's not just at that one experience, but there are repeated experiences where the parent was probably inconsistent or erratic, and the child is just left hanging and doesn't know where they are or how others are seeing them, and they stop caring because the relationship is so unreliable.
So much of what we see on this program has been really so interesting. Is I think most of our guests, if not almost all of our guests, other than the clinical ones, have been artists, either musicians or comics or
writers,
and we've been talking about all the different types of progressive addiction or types of ways that people get into addiction. And some of them, they'd have a first drink and they were kind of off to the races. Other people have this progressive thing. In the book that you wrote and what I read, it was such a lifestyle thing. I mean, it was just like you talk about walking down the neighborhood, and there was encroachment of African Americans into the neighborhood, and this sort of attraction to them drinking Thunderbird and paper bags, right? And that early sort of romanticism of being cool and being free and being liberated to drink.
Well, I was 5 when I split that day. There's a story
in the book. That was at 5 years old.
Like 5 years. Right. I wasn't old enough for kindergarten. It was probably 4 or 5. And my grandparents lived on the west side of Long Beach. So, and they'd been living there for a long time. So, the neighborhood was changed. And they're older white people, and it's becoming, Afro-American neighborhood. And, I just got bored. I was at the house, so I split. And I just
old.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years old. And because there was no safety there. There was no safety in the house. It didn't matter where I was going. I decided I was going to walk home. And, they found me up on Signal Hill hours later. But, just wandering around.
But you came from an inconsistent childhood, parenting.
Well, consistent in its inconsistency.
I said, guys, we have to take our first break.
And the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830.
Give us a call, and you can talk to Jack live on the air. All right, welcome back to KLEAN Radio. We're having a great night here tonight on KLEAN Radio. We got Jack Grisham.
Yeah, close
sorry.
enough.
You're right. I just can't even
Just
speak
mumble
tonight.
at his face.
Every week
Yeah.
he says "Welcome Black"
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
Welcome back.
instead of "Welcome Back."
I'm getting better
so,
at that.
So you are getting better. It's a Freudian slip.
I don't know about that, but anyway. Anyway, Jack just wrote a book, An American Demon, and it just came out. It's an excellent book.
See,
I
I'm
recommend it.
fascinated that he ran for governor of the great state of California. Also,
Right, but I only really did it to talk about healthcare in California, which at the time wasn't an issue. So feel free to look back. At the time, it wasn't an
The timing
issue.
was
to
off
anybody
on that
else.
one.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the cool thing was, I knew I didn't have a chance in whatever doing it.
Right.
We didn't have any money. But the real cool thing was I was able to go into a lot of schools and talk to like grade age, 3rd grade, 4th grade kids on how to get involved, which was really fun. Like to go into the schools and say, look, this is what you do, this is how you get involved, and
you got 2,500 votes
Yeah,
somewhere
it was
around.
all
That's a
right.
lot of
Yeah.
votes.
Yeah, wasn't bad.
That's a town.
I mean, yeah, we didn't have any money. I mean, if we had more money and could have covered the state, I think we would have done a lot better. So, and then it's real hard too. These guys are all worried about, hey, he was smoking weed. It's like, hey, YouTube me, and you got, you got me movies with whatever. So
Right, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger
yeah,
pumping
it's like,
steroids.
Yeah,
That was a crazy election.
No, I mean,
It's
right.
crazy. Yeah.
So tell us about recovery for you and post-recovery. What attracted you to recovery? Were you attracted to it? Were you forced into it?
No, it was really like I didn't even think. Here was what was trivial. I didn't understand. I didn't think I had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, you black out when you drink. Bless you. You black out when you drink. So what? Who
Right.
doesn't? I mean,
Right.
if you were drinking as much
Right.
as I did, yeah, of course you'd black out. It's like, yeah, you're getting arrested. Yeah. I was impersonating an officer. What do you expect? It's
Right.
like, they're coming up with all this crap, and I just didn't buy it,
Right.
And it wasn't, and luckily I got clean January 8th, 1989 is the day I got clean. And I remember for a year and a half being clean and not believing it. Like not really believing I had a problem. Like I'm going along with it and I didn't believe it.
Right.
And then I heard this guy say something, in group one time, and he said between drinks was the problem. And he said when he was drinking he was fine, and when that hit me I thought, oh my God, I'm doomed. And I realized that there wasn't anyone in that meeting that could help me. No one could help me. I knew that I was destined to get back, to go and get loaded again. I just knew it, and that's when everything really changed. Like that's when I woke up and I realized it had nothing to do with the going to jail and the drinking. It was the fact that I was going to do it again.
Right.
Knowing it was going to harm me, it was going to happen again.
There are
And
gonna
that's
be
the real issue.
consequences.
I think
Right.
it's probably one of the most powerless feelings, is knowing you have no control.
Right. But then the minute you switch, that's when power returns.
Oh, that's right. It's one of the biggest
Right,
misconceptions.
yeah.
It's like, right, admitting you're powerless, you
Yeah.
regain power.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah. The minute you see the finish line, say, hey, I think I can do this. And that's when everything really switched. And then it wasn't so much that I worked the steps as in they worked me. Once I think you wake up, it's almost impossible to not follow that progression. Do you know what I mean? When you really
Right.
when you look at yourself in the mirror and you walk by that one day and all of a sudden that inventory is written all over the mirror and it's not on paper, it's not. You look in the mirror and you know exactly what you're about.
Right.
All of a sudden you think to everyone you've harmed. You know what I mean? And it's like you want to tell somebody, how do I handle this? You go back and you start handling it because you genuinely feel bad for what you've done to people. When you really wake up and you can see that behavior, and then the rest of the step, it's just a progression from there. It's like you want to get closer in touch with whatever spiritual things going on.
Do you think you kind of aged out of it? Like, as you got older, it became less attractive?
Yeah, I was
you
like
know?
40. I don't know. It's like,
I mean, do you think that was part of it, or do you think
no.
No?
No, the selfishness, I don't think it's, I think
Did you mean out of the drinking or growing up as a human?
maybe the behavior. Yeah.
Well, it just seems like, a lot of these guys that we've been speaking to, especially musicians, it's just such part of the lifestyle. And for you, it seems to be so much of your character as, lead singer of all these bands. It was integrated in the behavior. It's supported by being on the road. It's, not,
Right.
You're still on the road now, I guess, but.
Yeah, but not really. I mean, I don't think you can ever grow out of selfishness. You know what I mean? That selfish thought, which is the real issue. So whether you're 40, 50, 30, 20, whenever that change happens, when I started seeing it and started looking outside myself, like I used to tell people I was like
You don't grow out of it, but what you do with it is different.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But waking up to it, so I didn't really mature. I don't know if I'm still mature. You know,
See, 'cause
I don't even know what that.
Yeah, I think you did. I don't know if you like it or not, but I would say you're much more mature. Because
you guys don't hang out with
the
me
last story,
all
you
the
were
time,
5 years old, so you know.